So Swedish nights can be very dark and lonely things, and it can be nice to have someone to cuddle up against when winter comes, yes. And to have someone to your brains out, yeah. Okay. And luckily there is a way to find a dashing young Swede to join you in your unchristian endeavors. It doesn't have to be a young one, by the way. Anyway, which is called dating. Yay, dating is a thing in Sweden. Thank God you watched this video and learned, you know. And luckily for you, dear viewer, this video is all about how, why and when you should date a Swedish person. I can guarantee you a 100% success rate because I am clearly an expert at this. These tips will work for everyone, no matter your sexuality, age, shoe size or political affiliation. Okay, so let's do this. Let's get sexy, everyone. Whoa. Swedish people are notoriously difficult to interact with. We're very awkward, we rarely reply when spoken to, and we just don't like other people very much. Most Swedes would actually rather nibble their own nephew than to interact with another person, let alone a stranger. Goodness. This makes finding a person to date in Sweden a rather steep hill to climb. If you feel that your dating game is on point, if your pheromones are lubricated and your genitals perky, you know, you might want to try to ask someone out in public in Sweden. Whoa, like on the bus or just out in the street. This is only for the experienced daters out there. Don't try this at home, people. In fact, you can't, I guess, unless you live on a bus or just in the street. If you do try to break through the sort of ice-cold social barrier every Swede has around them in these areas, the best way is to approach them slowly from behind, making sort of low grunting noises. The tricky part then is the opening line. How do you start a conversation with a random Swedish person? You can ask them where they live and if it's okay that you stand outside their door every once in a while, you know. You can also ask them what time it is. Just make sure to do it in a sexy way as possible. Do you happen to know what time it is? Ooh. Add the ooh as well. You can pretend to mistake them for your mother. None of these have ever actually worked for me, I should point out perhaps, but I'm convinced that they are the right way to go, you know. Now, if you feel your knickers are not as they used to be, if your nether regions no longer smell of elderflowers and retribution, you might want to kick down the difficulty one notch and move your romantic fishing pole to a Swedish bar. Even though this is still out in public, the ice-cold barrier around the Swedes are here usually somewhat melted. You can also grab yourself a stor stark here as well to calm down your nerves a bit, because here pickup lines are the shit, or skiten as we say in Swedish. How do you like the welfare state? Because I'd like to put you in a well and fair state. Yeah? Hello there, cookie. Why do you stand over there crumbling? Did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Because your face is a fucking mess. Can I add you on Facebook perhaps? Because I don't have that many friends. You know, I call myself Knulldozer 3000. Would you like to know why? If none of these manage to impress your Swedish catch, you can just beat the shit out of the person sitting next to them. It's important to show who's in charge and who the alpha Viking is, you know. And then beat the shit out of yourself as well while you're at it. They might pity you enough to bring you home with them, you know. If all of these options fail, I think it is time to bite the bull by its tail and create a Tinder profile. This is, after all, the most natural and straightforward way of finding a date in Sweden. This way, Swedish people can diss anyone they like just by ignoring them. This is what we usually want to do on the bus or in the bar as well, but it's not really socially acceptable to simply ignore someone who talks to you. But on Tinder it is, yay. And the only thing you really need on Tinder, obviously, is an eye-catching profile. You need a truly unique one that really stands out among the other ones. For instance, you can say that you enjoy coffee, travel, the outdoors, red wine, working out. Those are some really niche interests. You're looking for someone who's up for an adventure and who is taller than 6 foot. And if they're not taller than 6 foot, they can fuck off, really. You'd rather meet up than text for too long. Your blood is red and your heart is on the left, and you are fluent in sarcasm. No one has ever used these in their profiles before, so if you want a really interesting one, you know, no worries, you can have them. But no one really cares about the description on Tinder, do they? I mean, the pictures are what really matter. And the optimal formula for these ones, I've noticed, is the following. One sexy one to get their attention, preferably with a dog or cat, or any small animal will do, really. Have one where you show that you care about the environment. You don't want to seem as just an empty shell, but a good looking one as well. One where you're out traveling, of course, preferably someplace exotic. Avoid pictures from concentration camps and the like. You need to show also that you have successfully escaped your parents' basement. The one where you're out partying is clearly a must. And also, last but not least, don't forget, for goodness sake, the fish picture. You need to show that you have conquered nature and that you are a man, especially if you are a woman. And if you want to use ass or dick pics, you can. Just make sure to apologize for them in the description. Once you've landed a date with a lucky Swedish person, it's time to prepare for the upcoming confrontation. At this point, it is normal for nerves to take over and for your spleen to stop functioning. It's also not uncommon to shit oneself before, during, and after the date. So I usually bring a pack of toilet paper to any serious first date. You know, little tip there. You're welcome. But don't worry, there's really only two things you need to worry about before the date, and that is your looks and your personality. Many people disregard their looks entirely when dating. Society has taught them that their looks are not important. This, however, is not the case. Looks are as important to a date in Sweden as drinking water is for a German. Memorize, therefore, this important pose. You should have sort of a perplexed expression with your eyes, pout your lips slightly, and keep your hands on your head. Confusing your opponent is key. Never lose this pose, even when speaking or being spoken to, because this only works as long as the spell remains unbroken. In terms of outfit, I have shown you many different ones that can work for a date in Sweden in my videos about how to get a job in both London and in Sweden, so if you want any tips for that, I urge you to have a look at those ones. Yeah. Well, many people disregard their personality entirely when dating. Many people don't really have one to begin with. And this is completely fine, as long as you remember the social cues when dating in Sweden. Always shake hands or hug as a greeting for the first date. Don't let the, promiscuous and sexually liberated Swedes fool you into thinking that it's okay to jump straight to French fisting and anal kissing. Those are for date number 2. Sweden is also a very egalitarian society, or at least wants to be, so you should definitely split the bill. You run the risk of actually insulting someone if you insist on them paying for you. Other than that, just be yourself, I suppose. Unless you are uninteresting, sad, boring, lonely, drab, pathetic, uninteresting, or Danish. Now that you have your looks and your personality sorted out, it's time for the actual date. Goodness me, we've made it this far, yay! Remember, don't panic. As I mentioned, it is completely normal to shit yourself, and remember that it's very likely that the other person might have shat themselves as well. It's just a mess. All of this is just a messy affair. Your struggles are not over, however. You still need to perform. Simply showing up, expecting, intercourse, 2 kids and a mortgage, or whatever your ultimate goal of the date is not a very good look in Sweden. Part of the spectacle of winning the other person over is choosing the location for the date. The activity for the Swedish first date is always the same. You don't have to worry about that one because it is always fika. And now if you don't know what a fika is, it's when 2 people gather to drink tea or coffee and typically have a Swedish kanelbulle as well. You also bring a baby goat and drench the bun and yourself in its blood in order to appease the 2 ravens of Odin, Philip and Fredrik. The location, however, is pretty much up to you. Yeah. Other than that, you should remember to say stuff. Don't just stare at your beautiful Swedish date, gorgeous though they may be. Remember to keep the alluring pose, as mentioned earlier though. Keep the conversation flowing by asking questions like, so how long were you planning on staying? What time it is? Make sure to repeat this one several times during the date as well. Or perhaps make it personal, Do you wipe before or after you take the shit? Or philosophical, how do blind people know when they're done wiping? Yeah. You should obviously avoid awkward topics like, their interests or your taste in music or something. Towards the end of the date, you might very well want to add the person on Facebook in order to stay in touch. If they decline, this might just be because they don't know how to add you. They don't know how to accept your friend request. So I think the best approach really is to show them how to on your phone. And that's it, everyone. Yay. So if everything goes well, you will have your Swedish dashing person writhing in your sheets in no time. And, if everything goes to shit, then don't worry, there are plenty of Swedish people in the sea as well, drowning. Terrible, tragic thing. So thank you very much for watching. Yay, that's it. I don't think anything really in this video was very helpful. Hopefully you enjoyed it anyway. I really wanted to make this video and another one coming up before I start making the videos about Japan. And Japan is coming up. I'm moving in a month. Yeah. You know, apologies if this was perhaps a bit rushed. I will see you again in the next video. Thank you very much for watching again, and toodaloo. Bye.